Hello everybody. Today's video is going to be on factoring by grouping, and I'm going to do a couple examples of completing the square as well. Sorry, made a little mistake there. Completing the square. Alright, so first off we have a question here. It wants you to factor 15x plus 11x equals y plus 12. So first you want to arrange this into just having all of the x values and the constant on one side. So we're going to subtract 12. So 15x squared plus 11x minus 12 equals y. And I just prefer to have it in this format, just having the y on the left side, but you could do it either way, it doesn't really matter. So you have 15x squared plus 11x minus 12. And so when you want to factor by grouping, what you do is you multiply the a term and the c term together, and then you see if anything will add up to the b term. So we multiply 15 by negative 12. 15 times negative 12 is negative 180. So now we look for factors that will multiply to 180 that will add to 11x. So in order to get our factors, it's a little bit time consuming, but we just start dividing it by random numbers in our calculator and see what gives us a even number. So 3 and 60, 180 divided by 4 gives us 4 and 45. And we just keep doing that until we get a number that will add or subtract to 11x. So now we have 180 divided by 5, 180 divided by 6, 180 divided by 7 doesn't divide evenly. 180 divided by 8 doesn't work either. 180 divided by 9, we have 9 and 20. 180 divided by 10 would be 10 and 18, and you keep going. But if you notice 9 and 20 over here, that can add up to 11x. So it has to add to 11x and multiply it to negative 180. So that would mean we'd have to have 20x minus 9x. So we're going to split this 11x into those two terms. So we will have y equals 15x squared plus 20x minus 9x minus 12. And now what we do is we group each of these two terms. So we'll have that as a group, and we'll have these two terms as a group as well. So we're going to factor out the greatest common factor of these first two terms. So the most we can take out is, so they're both divisible by 5, and they both have an x, so we can take out 5x. And now we will divide each of those terms by 5x. So 15x squared divided by 5x will be 3x. Then 20x divided by 5x would be 4. And then we're doing the same thing for this next group here. So let's take the negative out. So then we take negative 3 out of each of those. And negative 9x divided by negative 3 would be just 3x. The negative 12 divided by negative 3 would be plus 4. Now you'll notice that we have these two sets of terms are both the same, so we can factor that out. And that'll give us our final answer of 5x minus 3 times 3x plus 4. Alright, so that's how you factor by grouping. I'll do another example. So we have y equals 6x squared minus 8x minus 8. So that's already in the proper form. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to multiply our a value and our c value together and look for common factors. So 6 times negative 8 will give us negative 48. And then I would just start dividing by 1, divided by 2, divided by 3 until you find a common factor. So we'd have 1 and 48, 2 and 24 should be divisible by 3, 48 by 3, 3 and 16, until we get something that will add up to this middle term here. So we have to keep going. 48 divided by 4 is 4 and 12. And 4 and 12 can add up or subtract to negative 8. So that would be negative 12 and positive 4. So now we're going to split this negative 8x into those two terms. So we'll have y equals 6x, and then, 6x plus 4x minus 12x, and then we'll have our negative 8 at the end. So one thing that can sometimes happen when you are factoring by grouping, if you group the wrong terms together, it won't work out. So in this example, it should not work out perfectly. So if we're going to factor out 2x from here. That would give us 3. Sorry, this is an x squared. This would be 3x. 4x divided by 2x would be plus 2. And then negative 12 and negative 8, the common factor would be negative 4. So then we'd have negative 4 times negative 4 times 3x plus 2. Oh, actually it did work here. My mistake. And yeah, so we have these two terms that are both the same in these two brackets. So we can factor those out. So y equals 3x plus 2 times 2x minus 4. But if you ever get some groups and you have like these two brackets don't match, I would try doing it the other way, like swapping the pairs and trying to group them with another term. It might work out, or you might have made a mistake somewhere else. And then you could also check your answer to see if you factored it out right, either by putting in your calculator or by expanding. If we were to expand to check, we'd have 6x squared plus, I'll just do it one at a time. Sorry, there's a bracket there. Minus 12x. Then I'll do this other term here, so then plus 4x minus 8. And once we simplify that out, we get the value we started with. Alright, so now we've done a couple examples of factoring by grouping. Now we're going to do some completing the square questions. So when you're completing the square, first you want to have it in this y equals form, like we have had before. And then after that, you want to factor out this coefficient, the a value, from the first two terms, from both of the x terms, and then we'll leave this constant out at the end. So what we do, we'd have y equals negative 1 over 4 x squared. Then we have to, since we're factoring by negative 1 over 4, we'd have to divide by negative 1 over 4. So that would give us plus 12x. And then we'll have our negative 12 outside of the bracket. And then what we do is we get our x term and we divide it, so that's our b over 2, and we square it. So 12 divided by 2 squared, that would give us 36. And yeah, unfortunately you just kind of have to like memorize these steps. Just take some practice to get it down. But yes, it can be a little bit confusing, that's for sure. So we have our 36, and now we're going to add that within the bracket, and we're going to subtract it after. So we have negative 1 over 4x squared plus 12x plus 36. Then we have our minus 12. And so now we have to cancel out what we just did. So we just added 36 for no reason, and that 36 is multiplied by negative 1 over 4. So 36 times negative 1 over 4, that is the same as subtracting 9. So in order to balance this out and keep the equation the same, we have to add 9 to the outside. So now we simplify this a little bit more. So we have negative 1 over 4 x squared plus 12x plus 36 minus 3. Now the final step, what we do is we factor it into a perfect square. So we have negative 1 over 4 x, and it'll always be x plus this term here, the like b term, divided by 2 squared. So be x plus 6 squared. Or another way to think of it, as you take the square root of this term and then add it to the expression and square it. So you have x plus 6 squared minus 3. So what this is saying is, this is our vertex form, and so basically what this is saying is that our vertex is at negative 6, because x plus 6 equals 0, so x would be negative 6, comma, negative 3. So if we were to just sketch this, be around, our vertex would be here. Alright, oh, and it's negative, so that it would actually open downwards. But yeah, we were just finding the vertex in these examples. Next up we have another expression. This one is not in the proper y equals form. So we are going to rearrange this. So we're going to subtract 1 from each side. So we have y equals negative 2x squared minus x minus 1. And now we're going to factor out the coefficient from the first two terms. So we have negative 2 x squared. Negative x divided by negative 2 would be 1/2 x. And then we keep our coefficient out here. And now what we do is we get our b term. So our b coefficient, that is 1/2. 1/2 divided by 2 and then squared. So 1/2 divided by 2 would be 1/4. Then we square that, and that would be 1/16. So now we're going to add that inside the bracket. So that will give us y equals negative 2 x squared plus 1/2 of an x plus 1/16 equal, and then we subtract our 1, and now we have to balance this, so we just added 1/16, but this 1/16 is multiplied by negative 2, so now we have to add 2/16, or 1/8. So now we have y equals negative 2 x squared plus 1/2 x plus 16. And then negative 1 plus 1/8 would be negative 7/8. Now finally we factor this perfect square trinomial. So we'll have our x plus this b term divided by 2. So the x plus 1/4 squared, or the square root of 1/16, but that's a little bit confusing. Then minus 7/8. So this means we have our vertex at vertex at negative 1/4, comma, negative 7/8. You could also put that in decimal form. I personally prefer the exact form, but it's whatever your teacher prefers. But anyways, that is how you factor by grouping and complete the square. If you guys have any questions, feel free